Hello everyone, welcome to the last video. This is going to be sort of a closing. First and foremost, let me thank you for some of the work that you've been doing. A lot of the work you've been doing is absolutely top-notch, and I've really enjoyed reading especially your journals and some of your thoughts on a lot of the different papers that we've done. Your thoughts in regards to Charlotte's Web versus Secret of the Andes is probably the most fun I've had with that so far. I did not expect what you ended up giving me. Interestingly, it's usually very heavily in favor of Charlotte's Web, and I believe it definitely was in majority in favor of Charlotte's Web this time. But the thing that made it very interesting for me was that you all had some very good arguments for Secret of the Andes this time around. I think most of the time we get caught up in how much we love the classic, especially if you grew up with it, and it makes it very easy to argue. A few of you that were in favor of Andes, or Secret of the Andes rather, were excellent. Those papers were amazing, and some of the arguments you made were very interesting and fun to listen to. So a few of you were like, man, I really wonder what happened. How did Charlotte's Web end up losing? What was going on? Well, here's a little bit of backstory, and it's not for sure. We'll never know exactly why it happened the way that it happened. We can't go back to 1953 and sit in the room with the people who are debating it, so I guess we'll never know for sure. But there are some interesting theories out there, so I'll share with you the most prominent one. So the story goes that there was a prominent librarian by the name of Anne Carroll Moore, and she was the head of the New York Public Library system. She did not get along with E.B. White or his wife, and she had a lot of issues with many of the books that he wrote. Namely, before that, Stuart Little, she actually tried to get that blocked at one point, so they didn't get along very good. And though we can never prove that she was the swaying opinion that pushed some of the people that were actually on the committee to make the decision that they did, it is kind of hard to go against someone with as much political power she had in that system. On the flip side, we also don't know what people felt back in 1953. So for us reading Charlotte's Web today, obviously we've had decades and decades of people love the book, so there's a lot of passion surrounding that book. And Secret of the Andes, being what it is, was a very good book, but has been lost to time, as have many of the other Newbery winners. So some of the really cool arguments that you had in favor in some of your papers may have been part of the conversations they were having on the committee. This does offer some really great diversity. It offers something that is different and new, and to the point that many of you did make about it taking about half the book to finally start getting interesting and start understanding it, we have to understand that it could be that back in 1953 it was easier to process something like this because you didn't have as many things competing for your attention, and we didn't get the instant gratification that we do now. This was back in the times when you had to wait a few hours for a batch of cookies and you had to wait for grandma to finish that dinner. But nowadays you can microwave something real nice, and that's kind of how I feel about Charlotte's Web, because right in the beginning, within the first few pages, he's got you hooked and really excited and the action has started, where this really builds. And I'm not necessarily saying this has an epic conclusion, because in my opinion, like, it's a cool conclusion, but it's not epic for me. But I really did enjoy the story quite a lot. And with Charlotte's Web, I enjoyed the story from start to finish. So which one would I pick? Well, I'm definitely firmly in the Charlotte's Web crowd. It'd be interesting to see what my opinion would be. It was back in 1953, but part of the reason I like this particular book is I'll give you one example. I can go on and on about how each one is good, because trust me, there are definitely great arguments for this book, and I do think this is a good book. But for me, for example, just as my one example, I hate spiders. I hate spiders. Anytime I see a spider in my house, I don't want that in my house. I want it out. I want it gone. And this book was able to give me as a child cry that a spider had died. Okay, I don't like spiders, and here I am crying that the spider has died. And even as an adult reading it now, I get all teary-eyed and sappy on the inside because this darn fictional spider has died. So he had the ability, E.B. White, to really get you emotionally involved in the story whereas I think this book didn't do as good of a job of that. But I do think some of the underlying themes that are happening in this book are deeper than this. This is a little bit simpler of a book. But you're also comparing a broad range of age groups, right? Because the Newbery Award isn't just for just 10 and 11-year-olds and those with higher level reading. I mean, it's for 3rd and 4th graders too. So you can have some lighter reading material with some lighter topics. You can't just argue that it's, you know, that it simply that it is deeper. But that is something that is special about Secret of the Andes. It really gets into some complex relationships, and I love some of the things that are happening in that book. So what I'd like to do now to close the class, well, almost close the class, is read you all Oh, the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss. This is something I've sort of always done, closing the class and done during the last class. It's usually the last thing I do to send you off, because many of you I may never see again if you're going to graduate. So you're going to be off to bigger and better things after this. Some of you I'm lucky enough to see after this, that's fantastic, but you're still going to go through the ups and downs in life. I think that these few weeks have been a very good example of that. I can tell from reading your journals, and I know from my own experiences that in many ways these have been a very hard and stressful few weeks. I think for students especially, you all have been working very hard, and this has turned your world sort of upside down. You never expected, many of you, to have to go online, and this is not your strength, and now you're forced to learn in this environment. It was very hard to make the transition. The amount of work to put in to change this to online was monumental, because, you know, in the case of myself and probably a lot of the people that you have teaching you that have taught the same class a few times, it's already built. So in many ways we can actually show up to the class without too much prep, and we can do a 3-hour lecture based on what we might have done the year prior. What I usually do, though, is I'll spend a few hours tweaking it and kind of changing things and updating activities that worked and those that didn't, and just massaging the material so we can get it right. But to completely upend it and uproot it and have to restart and redo everything has been very interesting. But one of the things that is positive that will come from this is that I have learned some new materials that I can use in the classroom. The other thing that's come from it is I've learned things to do and things not to do online. I often feel like with me, I usually learn more about what not to do on my first try than what to do. So unfortunately, many of you are my guinea pigs and had to suffer through some of my madness, but I hope you've enjoyed some of it. So as many of you know, when I was younger, I said that the Lorax was probably my favorite book. It was for a good long time until it was finally unseated. Actually, I probably would say that at one point it was unseated by The Hobbit, because in high school I really got into some fantasy, and J.R.R. Tolkien was at the right place at the right time for me. But a little bit later on, I graduated, and a book I'd never heard of or seen before was gifted to me, and that was this. Oh, the Places You'll Go. And for a children's book, it has a lot of deep meaning too. There's a lot going on in here. And if you really look deeply into this, you'll see how important the message of the story is. And look at it in terms of what we're experiencing right now. Many of you are very stressed, you're very overwhelmed because there's so much going on. And do note that the end is in sight, we're almost done. That doesn't mean this is over, though. For a lot of you, I know that you're still working, you've got kids at home, your life is sort of turned upside down, maybe you have family members you're worried about. I do think that this is a great book, so here we go. Oh, the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss. Oh, the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss. Congratulations! Today is your day. You're off to great places. You're off and away. You have brains in your head. You have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. You're on your own, and you know what you know. And you are the guy who will decide where to go. You look up and down streets, look 'em over with care. About some you will say, I don't choose to go there. With your head full of brains and your shoes full of feet, you're too smart to go down any not so good street. And you may not find any you'll want to go down. In that case, of course, you'll head straight out of town. It's opener there. in the wide open air. Out there things can happen, and frequently do, to people as brainy and footsy as you. And when things start to happen, don't worry, don't stew, just go right along, you'll start happening too. Oh, the places you'll go. You'll be on your way up. You'll be seeing great sights. You'll join the high flyers who soar to high heights. You won't lag behind because you'll have the speed. You'll pass the whole gang and you'll soon take the lead. Wherever you fly, you'll be the best of the best. Wherever you go, you will top all the rest. Except when you don't, because sometimes you won't. I'm sorry to say, but sadly it's true, that bang-ups and hang-ups can happen to you. You can get all hung up in a prickly perch, and your gang will fly on, you'll be left in a lurch. You'll come down from the lurch with an unpleasant bump, and chances are then that you'll be in a slump. And when you're in a slump, you're not in for much fun. Unslumping yourself is not easily done. You will come to a place where the streets are not marked. Some windows are lighted, but mostly they're dark. A place you could sprain both your elbow and chin. Do you dare to stay out? Do you dare to go in? How much can you lose? How much can you win? And if you go in, should you turn left or right and 3/4, or maybe not quite, or go around back and sneak in from behind? Simple it's not, I'm afraid you will find, for a mind maker upper to make up his mind. You can get so confused that you'll start into race down wiggled roads at a breaknecking pace, and grind on for miles across weirdish wild space, headed, I fear, toward the most useless place, the waiting place. For people just waiting for a train to go, or a bus to come, or a plane to go, or the mail to come, or the rain to go, or the phone to ring, or the snow to snow, or waiting around for a yes or no, or waiting for their hair to grow. Everyone is just waiting. Waiting for the fish to bite, or waiting for wind to fly a kite, or waiting around for Friday night, or waiting perhaps for their Uncle Jake, or a pot to boil, or a better break, or strings of pearls, or a pair of pants, or a wig with curls, or another chance. Everyone is just waiting. No, that's not for you. Somehow you'll escape all the waiting and staying. You'll find the bright places where boom bands are playing. With banner flip-flapping, once more you'll ride high, ready for anything under the sky, ready because you're that kind of guy. Oh, the places you'll go. There is fun to be done. There are points to be scored, there are games to be won. The magical things you can do with that ball will make you the winningest winner of all. Fame, you'll be famous, as famous can be, with the whole wide world watching you win on TV. Except when they don't, because sometimes they won't. I'm afraid that sometimes you'll play lonely games too. Games you can't win, 'cause you'll play against you. All alone, whether you like it or not. Alone will be something, you'll be quite a lot. And when you're alone, there's a very good chance you'll meet things that scare you right out of your pants. There are some down the road between hither and yon that can scare you so much you won't want to go on. But on you will go, though the weather be foul. On you will go, though your enemies prowl. On you will go, though the hack and cracks howl. Upward up many a frightening creek, though your arms may get sore and your sneakers may leak. On and on you will hike, and I know you'll hike far, and face up to your problems, whatever they are. You'll get mixed up, of course, as you already know. You'll get mixed up with many strange birds as you go. So be sure when you step with care and great tact, and remember that life's a great balancing act. Just never forget to be dexterous and deft, and never mix up your right foot with your left. And will you succeed? Yes, you will indeed. 98.75% guaranteed. Kid, you'll move mountains. So be your name Boxbaum or Bigsby or Bray or Mordecai Alley Van Allen O'Shea. You're off to great places. Today is your day. Your mountain is waiting, so get on your way. So it almost seems cryptic to me that this was Dr. Seuss's last book. Almost as if this was the last message he wanted to leave for us. That you will have the opportunity to succeed even though you're going to have the ups and downs throughout your life. Many of you know from the video that we watched earlier that he had his ups and downs. And I think there is some beauty in the fact that someone that can be revered almost as a hero within his own discipline, that he wasn't perfect. And if it's any lesson to many of you, including the lessons that are in this book, is that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep trying the best you can, be the best you can, and look for the good in life. Understand that you're going to go through those dips, and you're going to come back up. You're going to have positive outcomes in your life. It won't always be down like this, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. We will come back, things will get better, and life will be good. So with that, I want to say thank you so much. I really enjoyed teaching this class this year. I don't necessarily think that online was my favorite, but I very much enjoyed probably some of my favorite times being in class were with you all before we left. And believe it or not, I've actually had some very good positives from the online, and probably would not have had the opportunity to try those things or challenge myself had we not been pushed online. So with that, I want to wish you all the best. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for all the work you've put in. And as you move on in life, do I think you will succeed? 98.75% guaranteed.